Welcome to Hollywood Impact. My name is Eric. With me today is Christian and Sam.
Yep. Still haven't shaved my beard.
You still haven't shaved your beard.
It's Casual Friday.
Casual Friday.
That's Casual Friday. First, it's our second one, Casual Friday.
Correct.
First one, we talked about the state of Marvel, and today we are going to talk about the state of Star Wars.
Oh, Star Wars. Oh, you poor thing. You poor soul. You poor baby. So, I'm a pretty casual fan of Star Wars. Like, I don't know a whole lot of the extra... the extended universe, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're not a big nerd, okay? Yeah, you're not a big nerd like some of these guys.
You're right.
No, we're going to get into it here in a little bit. Don't.
I haven't even watched all the TV shows. I kind of fell off.
He's like, heck, I haven't even watched Star Wars. I don't even.
I thought this was a Star Trek episode.
Not the right. Oh crap. No, I mean I think it was past like Boba Fett. I was like, all right, man. I think I'm done with these Star Wars shows for a little bit.
Have you seen The Mandalorian season 3?
No.
Did you watch season 3?
No. We watched season 3, and then it turned into like Book of Boba Fett or whatever it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Did you watch Ahsoka?
Yes.
Did you watch Obi-Wan?
No.
Oh my
You didn't watch Obi-Wan?
I went out of order, or I went back from what I should have.
I might ask you to leave.
I went back. No, I went back. I was like, okay, I don't really care about Ahsoka, or I shouldn't say I don't care, but I'm like, Obi-Wan is the one I need to see, and I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
So
that's
maybe
crazy.
I'm not the guy for this State of the Union.
No,
but,
that'll be fine.
No.
But I have a general idea of what's going on.
It's all from the perspective of the casual fan.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's Casual Friday.
And I've said that too. I am not a big... I'm into the live action stuff. I've not watched a lot of the animated. I haven't.
Yeah.
But I'm still a Star Wars fan.
Correct.
I'm not trying to teach myself any new space languages or anything like that, but I do enjoy it. It was a big part of my childhood, the original trilogy. I know I was tough on the prequels, but at the end of the day,
Sure are.
minus Phantom Menace, the prequels are good. I enjoy the prequels, right? But what I am... Let me just get up. Can I get this up? Can I start? Can I start here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because listen, here's the deal. Star Wars, what I've noticed, the fandom is different than any other IP that I can think of. It's different than Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's different than Marvel or DC or anything like that, because there's a wing, there's a branch of Star Wars fandom.
I think I know where you're going.
That is, let's say they're militant. Just borderline rabid. Mm-hmm. And these guys think they know everything about Star Wars. They think they know how everything should be.
It's Game of Thrones-esque.
And they are the loudest crybaby voices in all of fandom.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I may get backlash. I don't give a rip, because I think these guys don't care. I don't think they want some Star Wars stuff to succeed.
They just want to hate on... They're literally haters. Like, they just hate. They're professional haters. Everything, like, could have been this way, could have been that way. And it's like, you can't just enjoy something. I agree.
And I'm not letting Disney off the hook. We'll get to Disney here in a minute. But I want to talk about these neckbeards with their toffee-stained fingertips and their Cheeto dust all over them. Guys, listen.
Your mom's basement.
Dust it off. Get a job. And instead of learning how to speak Wookiee or Kashyyyk or whatever it is,
I think it's
how about you keep with English and talk to a girl in real life?
Casual Friday.
Casual Friday. But I honestly, I want this stuff to do well. I want Star Wars to succeed. I went into the Acolyte. I'm like, I want this to be good. And I didn't hate the Acolyte.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, there's things that we can talk about that Disney's kind of messing up. Yeah. But at the same time, these other guys are review bombing it before it even...
Right.
3 episodes aired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's driving me nuts, because it's actually affecting what Disney's doing. They're letting these loud voices...
True.
You know, this base is like, if you were to take the left wing, all right, you got your Marxist Che Guevara t-shirt wearing Antifas, and then you got on the other side, you got these open carry, Confederate flag waving extreme right, and it's like they are similar to these two groups.
Yeah.
And Disney is letting them influence how they make decisions.
Well, Acolyte was going to have a season 2. It's not.
It's canceled.
It's canceled. Yeah, they canceled it.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it's canceled.
Yeah.
It's gone.
So there you go. No Acolyte season 2. I agree. I thought Acolyte was fine. I did catch Acolyte. I was like, some episodes are better. It wasn't the best Star Wars show that came out.
No, but it had its own merit for some
it was
parts.
fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's Disney Plus, I think it's getting formulaic, where a Disney Plus show comes out, the first 3 episodes, everybody hates it because it's boring, nothing's happening. It's called storytelling. They're like building a world, but it's boring. It's too slow. There's nothing happening. Where's the lightsaber stuff? Heaven forbid you have a story, and then like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, this is the best show Disney's ever put out. And then 9 and 10 happen. It's like, oh, this sucked. This is how I would rewrite it. Like, okay, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But I agree. It's very Marvel-esque. It's Game of Thrones-esque, where it's like, oh, everything was good and now it sucks, and they should rewrite it.
But these guys are big crybabies about it.
They are.
Like, more than any other fan base I've ever... Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Star Trek's got some pretty devoted fans.
Yeah.
You got
They
the
love
Trekkies,
even the bad
man.
stuff.
They
Like,
love
even
the bad stuff.
They love it.
And
They
there's
love
been
all of it.
there is so much Star Trek out there. I'm not really a big Star Trek guy. I don't dislike it. I'm just not into it.
No.
But I mean, you get on Paramount Plus, and it's like you can watch Star Trek for 100 years.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
on there. But
This is great. You were like firing off like so quickly.
Well,
so aggressively. I love it.
I think for me, it's part of more just. I don't want to drone on about the times we live in, but you know, it's very social media driven, where it's like,
It is.
I watch an episode, I tweet how I hate it, there it is, my opinion's out there, and like you said, Disney's like looking at it and being like, well, everybody hates it, well crap, we better change something.
well, that's why we like the reasonable people need to start having a voice and letting it be heard. Just
Right.
like we
Like
talked
and
about when
subscribe.
we did the Civil War episode, not Marvel Civil War, but Civil War, real Civil War.
Yeah.
We can't let these crazies dictate content and stuff like that.
Well, it's the power and influence of the people, social media, all that stuff is so much larger now because now companies who are trying to fund all these projects see that and they see, oh, everyone hated the Acolyte. So if you want renewed for a second season, we're not going to give you the money for it because we don't want this to come back on us.
Right.
And I think that's an extremely fair place to be in this day and age, that it really is kind of unfair. So if it were me, it'd be like, well, if the Acolyte season 1 bombed and you already had places and pieces like ready for season 2, just take what you learned from season 1 and try to make it better.
Sure,
Don't
yes.
don't double down
Yeah.
on don't double down on the stuff that you thought made season 1 work, because then you'll just make it worse. But also don't cut it off completely. Don't cut the rope, because then that just makes you look cowardly. And also all these cowards who are sitting behind their screens saying, oh my gosh, the main person in the Acolyte is a woman, my lord. It's crazy talk everywhere. It's nuts. And I hate it because I love the original trilogy. I have my stipulations about it. You and I have talked about that. If you haven't seen that, check it out.
It's a good one.
I love the prequels. I grew up with them. I know they're not very good, but just like a Star Trek fan, I know that some of them aren't very good, but I love them anyways because just because a few of your children didn't turn out the way you wanted them to doesn't mean you don't love them. So, but now it's just, as you said it perfectly, people are now expecting everything, or they're wanting everything to fail before it gets on the screen, and that is so awful. That's
I mean, they were
sad.
jumping on the Acolyte before it even came out.
Before
I
it
mean,
even happened.
let's talk about the Acolyte for a minute, because like Disney made some poor choices here. All right, now a season 2 could have fixed it, but there's some things that Disney needs to do, like, it's worked before with the Mandalorian, right? Mandalorian's pretty good.
Yep. Oh yeah.
All 3 seasons are good, even though the third is a little bit of a drop off. All 3 are really solid.
Yeah.
So
What's the Andor?
Andor's
really
great.
good. Now, who's the showrunners on those? Favreau and Filoni.
Yeah.
oh yeah, correct.
Guys that are Star Wars fans.
Sure.
So now
There you
with
go.
the Acolyte, what I don't like, and it kind of started with The Last Jedi, is like, it's okay to have good and bad.
Right.
It's okay that the Jedi are good and the Sith are bad.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm not saying the Jedi are without fault, but I think the Acolyte went out of their way to make it almost like the Jedi are inherently flawed.
Are inherently bad. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like the whole thing where it's like, oh, we have the right to take this little kid because they're force sensitive.
Right.
Like, they didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
And if you want to have a Jedi that leaves the Order, but it's not a Sith, and it's like a gray Jedi, or maybe a Sith, it's like, I'm not about that life, but I don't want to be a Jedi, explore those.
Yeah.
But we don't need to have sympathy for the Sith.
Right.
It's okay to have good and evil.
Correct.
And that's what the Acolyte kind of failed to do. And on the positive side, the Acolyte had some of the coolest ass lightsaber stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They'd had some really good things. The lead, Amidala, I can't think of her. I can't pronounce her name. I'm sorry. I apologize. You were great. I think she was really good in that. And there were a lot of good things. But then that green bitch was getting ready to start lying to Yoda at the end and making it like the Jedi was going to be covering up everything.
Right.
And but I think the point, we got to have Star Wars showrunners be Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she was necessarily a fan, because I don't think a true fan is going to start making the Jedi like bad all of a sudden.
No,
and the Sith good all of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there can be gray area, but it can't be full, like you said, inherently flawed.
Yeah.
Like, do they make all the right decisions all the time? No.
None of
but
us do.
explore that. Explore the consequences of that. Don't be like,
Which is what The Last Jedi does. Sorry, go ahead.
Well,
Hey, I'm very passionate about that movie. You know it. I love that movie, and I think it's just because it's okay to show that good people can do bad things, but that doesn't make them all inherently
but it makes
bad.
the Jedi seem like some secret organ. It makes them seem like Sith. Like,
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, it did in the
there's no
Acolyte, yeah.
like you said, there's no distinction. Like, who am I supposed to root for?
Yeah.
Not to veer off too far, but it's kind of Breaking Bad-ish. The one I really had only two issues. One was the Fly episode on Breaking Bad. If you know what I'm talking about, there's an episode, it's called Fly, and it just follows like a fly on the wall perspective, regardless. But Breaking Bad started to get into the area of like everyone kind of sucks. And it's like, who do I root for anymore? I'm just watching terrible people do terrible things all to each other.
But that makes sense for a show like Breaking Bad.
Right.
But for Star Wars, that's a property that's been beloved for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why are we starting to play around with that kind of stuff?
The formula's simple.
It is.
Good guys, bad guys, go. It can't be that difficult.
No, it can't. But, with so much... It's got one of the largest universes and lore of basically anything in the history of mankind. So there's so much to explore, and so there's enough time to explore, what if Jedi, actually kind of do bad things. I understand that concept, but the foundation of this whole thing was good versus evil.
Right.
The light side versus the dark side. And light side good, dark side bad.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And I get that there's gray areas, but trying to blur all those lines all the time now is especially in these day and ages, in this day and time, where people are having trouble with concepts of morality, then this is obviously a hot topic. And once you influence what you're creating with all of that stuff from the real world, part of it is relatable, but also that relatableness almost makes it less appealing to watch, because I didn't show up to Star Wars just to watch a reflection of what's happening in today's day and age. I'm trying to watch Star Wars to get
away from it,
out of that and into their world with their stuff. And it feels like there's a little bit too much blending now, and that irritates me quite a bit.
Like, can you imagine if we have Luke versus Darth Vader, and you start to root, like we have actions where we start to root for Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's like when you...
It's like, that doesn't make any... It doesn't even make sense anymore.
No,
like, what are we talking about?
Agreed. But I think a lot of it should be the intention behind the project that you're making. Like, why are you making this? Why we have the Skywalker saga, and with everything outside of that, you have to be really intentional with what you're making it about. So for Andor, which does a great job, it is a spy thriller that tells, the rebellion before the rebellion sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Very cool story to tell. With the rest of these, especially with shows that go on a little bit too far on, but the Acolyte, because it's just a hot topic, it just seems like their intention was to bring to light, oh, maybe the Jedi are inherently bad. And I don't think that intention or that concept is a good one to go off of for the rest of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because that has ramifications. And, I know that people get mad. They're like, oh, well, it's just all these straight white males that are making all these comments. I'm like, well, that's the majority of your audience. Like, you have to understand who your audience is. Like, I'm not.
If you look at a lot of fingertips, a lot of white fingertips.
If you look at all these talky fingers.
Cheeto Orange shows up strong on.
If you look at mom's basements.
But like, it's going back to making a passion project for creative fun for the audience rather than trying to make a statement about something. You don't always have to make a statement about something. The statement's already been made. Light side good, dark side bad. And each of those can be capable of doing good or bad things, but the line should be clear.
I think the biggest thing I have is like, it's kind of Marvel-esque where it's like, yes, you can have stuff that people can relate to, like certain, I know there was especially, I don't know why I think it's Secret Wars, but like you get kind of tackle the immigration thing with that, where it's like, oh, these guys are outsider, blah, blah, blah. Hey man, this is a movie where people fight each other with laser swords and shoot like laser guns at each other. Like, you don't have to tell me how to feel, and whether I agree or not, whatever. Like, can we just stick to, this is a movie about laser guns. Let's just stick to the laser guns and maybe some, interesting storylines that you've taken from the real world. Sure, but this is not Civil War.
Right. There's a point I wanted to bring up here with you guys. See, just get your take on it. So, forever, when they announced the prequels, it was going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That was going to be it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was all we were getting. So after that, what happened is we started getting a lot of novels. Mm-hmm. The Thrawn trilogy, and then we got a bunch of books. Mm-hmm. And that became basically the new canon for a while. Mm-hmm. And then they announced the sequels, and that's all legends. That doesn't count. Right. But I think, bear with me here, like, there were some characters in those novels. The Mara Jades. Thrawn, they've actually adapted Thrawn. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, the twins that Han and Leia had, and I think there was a third. I think, since people were not expecting a sequel trilogy, they really dived in to these books. Do you guys think that Disney's failure to adapt some of these characters from Legends canon properly is leading some, like, to me, I think this is some justified backlash, if you will, because I think seeing a Mara Jade character would be really cool.
Well, it would be really cool.
But, because people were just relying, well, this is going to be Star Wars for me.
Right.
And then whenever, like, no, we're going to do some, and then they didn't do it exactly how they wanted it, and then everybody lost their minds.
Right. I think yes and no. Like, you don't have to, like, certain stories don't have to rely on the books. You can go away from the books. It just didn't feel like we had a direction with the sequels.
No, I agree.
I think
totally.
In a vacuum,
100%.
I think those 3 movies are fine. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but they're not the worst piece of film I've ever seen in my life. I didn't understand it felt like 3 separate films just in order. It didn't feel like a trilogy. It felt like, all right, there's this movie. Oh, people hated this. Let's go in a different direction. Oh, people hated this. Let's go in a different direction. And it just felt like 3 different things that just kind of all culminated in, we better fix something. And I think if you stick with that, like if you go with the books, at least you have a blueprint. Like, you know where you're going.
That's true.
I think you don't have to always go with the comics or the books or anything like that, but if you're gonna make a Star Wars, you might want to follow some Star Wars stories.
Well, they tried to, was it Ahsoka that they introduced? Well, no, I guess Thrawn was introduced in some cartoons first, right?
He was introduced in Star Wars Rebels.
Okay, but then they brought him in Ahsoka, which Ahsoka, by the way, it's like, if there were ever, like, real green women, I think I would have a type. Because after Ahsoka and Gamora and She-Hulk, anyway.
Oh my God!
Secret Wars. Secret Wars might change your thoughts.
He's sweating over here.
But they did bring in a live-action Thrawn, which was originally from those books. I think if they did more,
it was well done.
Yeah, and I think if they were able to have done maybe a Mara Jade, or maybe there's some others out there, it would have helped things. But I don't know, man. I want Star Wars to be good.
You did want it to be good.
I want it to be good.
I want it to be good,
So
brother.
I'm more of a movie. Like I said, I've missed out on quite a few of the TV shows. Even Obi-Wan, I'm disappointed I missed it, but I'll get there.
I liked Obi-Wan.
I'll get there. Don't worry about it.
It's
But
okay.
no, like I've missed quite a few of the shows. I'm more of a movie episode guy. Where do we go? Like they've already announced 10, 11, and have they announced the trilogy 10, 11, and 12? Because I know 10 is like in the works.
They announced a new trilogy that's like not supposed to be about the Skywalkers, but I think like as far as like Rey goes, there's another movie that's supposed to be about Rey and a new generation of Jedi.
Yeah.
So that's all I know of so far.
Like I said, it's a very weird. I don't feel totally comfortable. Like I don't know where we're going. Not that they lost my trust or anything. It's not that serious.
Right.
But the last sequels or whatever, it kind of damaged that a little bit. Where I was like, well, do we know where we're going this time?
Right.
Like, yeah, we got lost and eventually I guess we kind of found the place. But like, we had to take 3 back roads to get there. Like, can we just go on the highway this time?
Correct. To answer your question earlier, I don't think that like trying to answer your stuff and trying to go off what you said.
I kind of go ahead.
You made a point that like if there are books out there with all this established lore, it's got a direction, like you have a blueprint for somewhere to go if you need something like that, especially if you want to try to gain the trust of your fans back. I think that would be a good idea. But like as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, the books of Star Wars came out after the original trilogy, which means that they don't have an obligation to follow any of the books because the movies came first. And so the books are just kind of like this added adventure lore. But for me, Star Wars is such a big universe. There's so many stories to tell. And Andor is like #1 proof of you can tell stories without lightsabers.
Yeah.
And although the lightsabers are the coolest parts, like, like all the kids at the playground, when I was a kid, I'm not standing like making some dramatic speech. My whole thing is I'm going to hit you with this stick because this is my lightsaber, because that's just fun. But there's so many stories to tell. And I think that what they're now trying to do is they're trying to warp this Force lightsaber saga stuff into whatever they want it to be, instead of trying to tell their own stories from across like all these different times, all these different galaxies. They're all trying to just warp and reconstruct and redo what's already done. And I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that they're doing.
But like you look at the original trilogies, even the ones that have the big lightsaber battles and whatnot, it's not all lightsabers.
No.
You have the Han stuff.
It's just the coolest part. But.
You have the kind of stealthy missions. You have the air battles. You have the walkers. Like, it doesn't have to be just, I'm not like caveman Neanderthal, like, give me swords and and all that. But like,
I'll take it.
but it just has to be good. Like, I guess that's the end.
It does have to be surrounded by a good
end of the
story.
day, make it good.
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
You want to be able to invest time and emotion into the characters and into the story. And you got to decide, you have to really choose what your audience is and be clear about that, because the prequels were clearly made for kids. It was made to sell toys. I bought a lot of toys. Mom, I'm sorry for all the money that you spent. I was a kid during that time. Mom, I apologize for all the money you spent on so much Star Wars toys. But that was part of the fun, was that was the targeted audience, and it could be fun for all ages, but it was tailored towards this general audience that was just creative and fun and imaginative. And it needs to be more of that and less of trying to make some sort of corporate statement that, actually Star Wars is now about this and this and this because it should be about this. It's like, well, no, that stuff's already been established. You're just trying to rework it, and it's
eerily similar to Marvel to me. I know I make a lot of Marvel comparisons, but
it kind of is. No,
they fall. I mean, they're the same umbrella basically. So
are you guys as optimistic about the future of Star Wars as I think we were pretty positive about Marvel last time we did this?
We are pretty positive about Marvel.
I'm not as.
I'm not
Not
as
as for
pumped.
Marvel.
No.
It's not the end of the world. I think it's pretty easy fix.
Yeah.
I think it's just my feelings on it are much different. Like it's a similar sphere of nerd fandom, but it's not. Especially since like they've had, just like Marvel, they've had so many projects come out. You've got the Book of Boba Fett, then you got Ahsoka, then rip to Ray Stevenson, the guy who played Balon Skull.
Yeah.
What a cool character.
Yeah.
What a cool character. It's so sad that he had to go before his time. And like, so there were things that I was looking forward to,
Right.
and now I just don't know. Because for me personally, all the shows are fine or good. I enjoy all of them. The real point for me that had me scratch my head was the Rise of Skywalker. That was the moment where I'm like, okay, I don't think they really understand. Like, I know that a lot of people hated The Last Jedi. I know I'm like the devil's advocate for The Last Jedi, but that's a whole nother topic. Go watch the other video. I'll put the link up. Go watch that one where I talk about that. But for the future of Star Wars, I'm not as optimistic because I really just don't know what their intention is.
Don't have a lot to base a lot of good faith on.
They started to say, okay, well, we're going to go in this direction because the culture says this. Then they're like, actually, we're going to cancel that because people didn't like that. And I'm like, okay, well, you got to use your adult brains and you got to figure something out.
They can do it though.
Something.
They've shown that they can do it.
Right. You can do it.
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Was good.
Yeah.
When the Mandalorian
just have Favreau there.
That's what they need. I mean, it doesn't have to just be Favreau for Filoni, but they need to get some like people in here that are like true Star Wars fans that really love it.
Absolutely.
To tell these new stories, because it's like, I mean, you can relate to this coaching kids.
Yep.
It's like, I can't hit a ball, blah blah. I've seen you do it.
Right.
I've seen you do it a number of times. You can do it.
Yeah.
Disney. You can do this with Star Wars. You've done it. Yeah. But you got to put the right people in the right positions to make it happen. So you got the characters out there. There's stories to tell, but you got to get the right storyteller.
Yeah, and you have to get yourselves in a room and be like, we are going to go here and we're going to end here.
And we're not going to listen to
you gotta
the
stick
Cheeto
to
Boys.
You got to
stick to it. That's story writing 101. Like, I want to write a novel sometime, and everyone says you got to figure out where your story's going to end, because if you don't, then all the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. And you got to do that. Got to do it. That's all I'm going to say.
Since we're giving advice from three people that have never made a movie in their life, but no, in all seriousness, like if we're doing like pitches, bring back like Knights of the Old Republic. Like go way back. Dude, those games are some of the most like, I mean, highly rated. In my mind, they're some of my favorite games. And I know, like, just because one person likes it, you should do it. But like, there's stories to tell. If you're out of stories, if you don't know where you're going, make something from the past and then figure out where you're going while all that's going.
Well, it could be a good way to bring back the fan base too.
That's what I mean.
Get the people back with that,
give
and
them
then you
fan
can start getting creative again with some new stuff.
Nothing wrong with a little fan service every now and then.
Exactly. Or do a live action Cal Kestis, please. I need Jedi Fallen Order. I need it live action. I need it now. You probably don't know what that is. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's a video game. That's okay. Yeah, it's not. There's an age gap right here. There's a line. There's a line right here.
Any final thoughts, guys? Any final thoughts, guys?
No, I'm just tired of being abused by Star Wars.
It's gonna be okay, buddy. It's gonna be all right.
Don't assume that you know what everyone wants. Just create. Have fun. Tell a good story. That's what it's all about.
Tell a good story.
All right, guys. I think that's it for this edition of Casual Friday. If you like what you're watching, please let us know. Hit that like. Hit that sub. Subscribe. Leave a comment.
Like and subscribe.
If you have suggestions, hey, we'll hear that too. And if you have some disagreements, bring them. That's fine too.
Put all your mean comments down below.
Put them down here.
Use those talkie stained fingers.
Bring it, nerds. Talkie stained fingers. That's great.
Guys, thanks a lot. That's it for us.
Have a good one.